Saudi king makes emergency landing in the Philippines. How a 50-year debt changed everything. What was supposed to be a routine flight across Asia suddenly became something no one could have predicted. High above the clouds, a royal aircraft carrying the Saudi king encountered a critical mechanical failure. Warning systems flashed. Communication grew tense. The pilots had minutes to decide. Continuing the journey was no longer an option. An emergency landing was ordered. The nearest safe runway was not in a major power nation, not in a wealthy capital, not in a country with strong political influence. It was the Philippines. Within minutes, diplomatic channels lit up. Philippine airspace was cleared. The aircraft descended under tight security, touching down safely on Filipino soil. What looked like a simple emergency landing would soon become one of the most talked-about political legends in the region. At the airport, confusion mixed with urgency. Officials rushed to prepare a secure area. Medical teams stood ready. No one expected a king. No one was prepared for what would follow. The Saudi king stepped onto Philippine soil unexpectedly, without preparation, without ceremony, without the layers of protocol that usually followed him. Yet, what happened next surprised everyone. Instead of immediate demands, instead of pressure or authority, the king reportedly asked for something simple: time. During the delay, arrangements were made. The aircraft required extensive inspection and repair. The king and his entourage would remain in the Philippines longer than expected. What was meant to be hours became days, and during those days, conversations began. Private meetings took place between Saudi representatives and Filipino officials. At first, discussions focused on logistics and security. But slowly, topics shifted. History was mentioned, old agreements, forgotten promises. Then a document was brought up, an old debt. According to political folklore, decades earlier, the Philippines had received financial assistance during a difficult period. The money had helped stabilize critical sectors. It had kept institutions alive. It had supported development when options were limited. The agreement was formal. The amount was significant. But over time, administrations changed. Records faded, priorities shifted. The debt remained unresolved for nearly 50 years. Now, unexpectedly, the lender stood on the borrower's land. The story goes that during a private discussion, the Saudi king requested clarity. Not repayment, not pressure, just honesty. What had happened to the debt? Filipino officials reportedly explained the truth. Economic struggles, political instability, natural disasters, shifting governments. The debt had been acknowledged, but never fully addressed. There was no attempt to deny it. What happened next became the heart of the legend. Instead of anger, the king listened. Instead of threats, he asked questions. He requested to understand the country, not just its numbers. He asked about education, healthcare, poverty, and development. He asked where the money would matter most if given again. This was not expected. Negotiations paused. Advisors were dismissed. What followed was a conversation not often seen in geopolitics, human to human. According to the story, the king made an unexpected proposal. The debt would not be demanded. Not now, not ever. Instead, it would be transformed. The amount would be redirected into development projects, schools, hospitals, infrastructure, employment, long-term investments aimed at helping ordinary people rather than filling state accounts. The debt would not disappear. It would evolve. The Philippines would not owe money. It would owe progress. The idea stunned everyone in the room. This was not charity. It was not forgiveness. It was something different, a strategic reset of obligation. Instead of repayment with interest, the country would repay through growth, stability, and partnership. Overnight, the tone of the visit changed. What began as an emergency landing turned into a turning point. Joint committees were formed, frameworks were discussed, long-term cooperation plans were drafted. Energy, labor, education, and trade all entered the conversation. The king reportedly emphasized one condition: transparency. The funds must reach the people. The Philippines must show results. If the country succeeded, the partnership would deepen. If it failed, the opportunity would be lost. The aircraft was repaired days later. The emergency had passed, but the king did not rush to leave. He requested to see the country, not the palaces, not luxury. He asked to visit ordinary areas, schools, hospitals, communities. Whether entirely true or partially symbolic, the story describes visits that changed perceptions. Children studying with limited resources, doctors working with outdated equipment, workers doing more with less. It reinforced the decision. When the king finally departed, the atmosphere was different. No longer tense, no longer uncertain. The Philippines had not just hosted a foreign leader. It had been trusted. In the years that followed, stories began to circulate. Investments increased. Labor agreements expanded. Infrastructure projects gained foreign backing. Educational exchanges grew. People whispered that it all started with an emergency landing, a moment of vulnerability, a forgotten debt, a choice not to punish, but to rebuild. Critics questioned the story. Some called it exaggerated. Others said it was impossible. Official records were vague. Governments rarely confirmed legends. But the supporters pointed to changes that followed. They pointed to timelines. They pointed to patterns. They said coincidence was unlikely. Whether fully factual or partially myth, the narrative carried a deeper message. Power does not always show itself through force. Sometimes it appears through restraint. The idea of a 50-year debt being transformed into opportunity resonated beyond politics. It became a metaphor, a reminder that history does not have to repeat itself, that relationships can be redefined. For the Philippines, the story symbolized dignity, the courage to admit weakness, the strength to accept help without surrendering identity. For Saudi Arabia, the legend painted a picture of leadership beyond wealth, influence through wisdom rather than demand. And for the world, it became a rare example of diplomacy shaped by circumstance rather than strategy. An emergency landing changed everything, not because of where it happened, but because of how people responded. A crisis became a conversation, a debt became a bridge, and a moment of uncertainty became a lesson in leadership, humility, and long-term vision. Whether history records every detail or not, the impact of the story remains. Sometimes, the most important turns in history are not planned. They happen when planes land unexpectedly, and leaders choose humanity over power.